Hi guys, whoa. Hi guys, Attila here from Cypac. Thanks so much for making the time to come join us today. Appreciate everyone making the time to come out and fight the food vendors, because I know the food out there is much more appealing than sometimes listening to some cybersecurity stuff. But I promise you, there's going to be some interesting things today. We're going to be talking about your business, your organization, the kind of things that happen to all of us. And there's going to be some stories we're going to talk about here today. And those stories are meant to inform, instruct, but they are based on true things that we have actually come across in our almost 20 years of business. Real cybersecurity stories that we can all learn from. But of course, I've had to take out some names and places, so that way it would be safe for you to be able to learn from, but not necessarily know who this applies to. We're going to start by talking about a murder. Yes, a murder. And a murder happened at this person's business. And this person, his name is Daryl. Now, Daryl is a local food vendor, which means he delivers wholesale fruits and vegetables and all kinds of really fascinating and important things that are related to the restaurant business, right? So hotels, restaurants, these are the types of companies that he helps to service. But one thing about Daryl is he's got a pretty big staff, right? He's got a busy warehouse, folks running around with forklifts, phones are ringing, faxes are coming in sometimes with those restaurants from orders. There's all kinds of perishable goods, there's new deliveries coming in, prices are being changed every day. They're going up and down based on demand, right? So that should tell you that this is a very busy operation. And what happens to Daryl is that one day, the phones are ringing, but these strange error messages start showing up on his computer screens at his office. What do these error messages mean? He's not sure, so he reboots his computers. And staff can't work, right? Things are not really glitching out. And he calls his IT guy. He says, "Hey, Mr. IT guy, can you come on down and see what's going on?" IT guy says, "Sure, no problem." Jumps inside of his truck. But before he gets there, all of a sudden, Daryl's screens change. They turn into this. And this is called ransomware. For those of you who are not familiar with ransomware, what that means is a bad guy can get inside of a computer network and take all those important files that are necessary for the business to operate and encrypt them. That means that they become unreadable. And he'll give you the decryption key, but for a price. Now, in this case, this bad guy put up a little note on that computer screen and said, "You have 48 hours to pay me in $150,000 in untraceable Bitcoin." Yikes. Well, Daryl's never worked with Bitcoin before, as a local company. Of course, out here in Hawaii, cryptocurrency is not really such a big deal, not a big thing. So he's a little bit worried. He doesn't know what to do. His IT guy shows up. He doesn't know what to do either. They said, "You know what? Let's check our backups." Backups are the place to go, right? Everyone has backups. They check their backups, and they do have a server on premise because they do some pretty elaborate stuff with their software to keep these fruits and vegetables flowing. Sure enough, the backups are also encrypted. That means that the bad guys have been inside the network for a while, and they're able to pick up those backup drives as they're being plugged into the computer and encrypt them, so everything was gone. Uh-oh. By the way, remember, I said true story based, so we have seen this firsthand. So what does Daryl do? Well, he tries to struggle. Let's see if he can get together $150,000. Tries to negotiate with the bad guy. Bad guy says, "Sure, no problem. I'll give you another 24-hour extension for another $100,000, $250,000 in Bitcoin." He doesn't have that kind of cash just laying around and able to do. So what ends up happening? Well, the bad guy said, "If you don't give me this money, I'm going to take all this data that I've stolen out of your network and I'm going to sell it on the dark web." And that means that all that important customer data, all the employee social security numbers, payroll, HR information, all that went out there onto the dark web, and the bad guy made good on his promise after not receiving the funds, sold the stuff on the dark web, left all of his computers encrypted, so he had no chance of doing anything other than starting from scratch. So Daryl's IT guy wipes all the systems, starts it up from scratch. But you got to remember, this is a fruits and veggies, perishable goods type of business. It's very time dependent. Can't have products sitting around. He had to stop all the trucks. He had to send the staff home. And what happened? Those restaurants needed to get their produce from elsewhere. They reached out to other vendors. Other vendors said, yeah, no problem. We can deliver those fruits and veggies to you as well, but it's going to be at a contract rate. It's going to be a little bit different in terms of pricing. In fact, they're going to come in at better pricing. So what ended up happening is Daryl's clients went elsewhere to get their product, and that product was at a better price, and those guys weren't coming back. So it took a couple of weeks, and by the time he got everything back up and running, he looked out into his warehouse. He had spoiled produce out there. He couldn't sell that. Had to get new produce in. So all that was damaged, destroyed, and those clients weren't coming back either. And he watched his business change over the next few months, right? Without the client revenue, he had to lay off some staff. He wasn't able to make payroll, wasn't able to make rent, and everything kind of spiraled into a downward method where at the end of just a couple of months, he had to sell all of his old refrigerators and desks and computers at a bargain discount on Craigslist. It was pretty sad. So the big question is, who killed Daryl's business? Who's the murderer? And we're going to investigate that today. But before we get into that, I'm going to talk a little bit about just myself and what we do, because of course we all love hearing about what others in the profession are able to do. So my name is Attila, and I'm the owner here at Cypac. I'm the founder. I started almost 20 years ago, and back then cybersecurity was kind of laughable, right? People were putting Post-its on monitors, and no one was thinking much of it. But guess what? Today it's more relevant than ever. So in some ways, I hope I had some vision back then. You may have seen me on the news. I've done lots of segments on there, every major news channel. I've been on the radio, been a host, do a lot of live presentations, try to do a lot of community service, such as events like this, so that we can go out and educate the public about kind of at a higher level, on a more positive note, and give some perspective. Because we do see cybersecurity in the news a lot, and a lot of that's really scary, negative things that you have no control over. Everything from oil pipelines getting shut down to the FBI being hacked. Like these are really big, scary things that you can't really do much about. So we don't try to fearmonger. We try to inspire and give you guidance on what you can do today to help your business be more successful by being more protected. Now, Brittnie is going to be joining me here in a little bit. She's also in our audience. And Brittnie is one of the newest members of our team. She has a lot of actual cybersecurity background in the retail space, but one of her unusual talents is that she's a champion lockpicker. And what that means is that she's able to pick a lot of locks very easily as a good guy, as a penetration tester. And so we're going to have a demonstration, if you stick around till the end, where we're going to be going into that lockpicking method and how that all works. It's going to be a lot of fun. Just a little bit about what Cypac does is that we're a cybersecurity managed security services provider. So as an MSSP, we work a lot with IT departments. We make them look good. They come to us, they say, hey, we have these needs, either from the outside, so like a customer or compliance regulatory compliance issue, or the boss has come down, he's come to a talk just like this, heard someone like me talk about cybersecurity and says, we need to do this at our company. And they come down the IT firms and the IT department comes to us for help. Unfortunately, one of the things that we do come across is that folks do reach out to us and they say, look, we've had an incident such as this. We need some help, we need some guidance. And that's where we get involved with law enforcement. We help out sometimes with the FBI, Homeland Security for bigger things. And unfortunately, after that's happened, it's been a real difficult thing to do, to recover from. So you do need a little bit of security expertise on that. So that's also what we do as a company. But back to Daryl. Let's investigate our murder suspects. Now we've narrowed it down to 2 suspects. Not Daryl, of course. So number 1 is a technology fail. So could it be that maybe something in his computer network didn't do its job? Maybe there was a firewall or gateway product that didn't stop the infection. Maybe there's a piece of software on the computer that should have been protecting the computer but didn't. Or could it be a behavioral fail? Could it be that maybe they clicked on an email that they shouldn't have, or a text message came in on their phone, they clicked on it, and oh no, now they're infected, right? Could it be one of those 2? Now, there's probably other culprits, but these are the top two here. Now, which one do you think it is? Now, you don't have to raise your hand or tell me which one it is, but think about it in your mind. Is it a technology fail or a behavioral fail? I see some signs out there, so we'll see if you're right at the end of the presentation. But let's investigate suspect number one, technology fail. So who here has heard of antivirus, right? Antivirus software, all right, I see some hands. Antivirus is a great way to describe kind of how we've all been trained about how protection should work. Think about it like a supermarket. All right, if you go down a supermarket and you see some pasta sauces falling off the shelf, broken in the middle of the aisle, it's a big mess. Antivirus software comes along and scoops that up and cleans it up so that you can keep on shopping through the market. But there's this thing called EDR, endpoint detection and response. And it's a different way of looking at protection. And EDR, instead of being reactive to that pasta sauce falling down, is proactive. It walks the aisles of the supermarket looking for that pasta sauce that could be on the tip of falling over into the aisle and breaking. Oh no. So the EDR is a proactive approach. And of course, because it's a newer approach, that means that it's also going to be some different vendors that you may not have heard of. So there are some pretty popular ones that are kind of coming up in this space, such as vendors like CrowdStrike or SentinelOne. Folks like Norton and Symantec, they've kind of stepped back and stepped out of this arena because this is a new way of protecting systems instead of an old way that doesn't really work as well. So what it comes right down to is effectiveness. Is it more effective to have an EDR versus antivirus? It certainly is. So that's your first piece of education. Now, what do you think Daryl did at his computers? He got some Windows computers from Best Buy. And he said, oh, these come with Windows Defender. That's that free Microsoft thing. I'm okay. He didn't have a proper EDR solution, and if he did, it would have stopped such an infection from occurring. It has specific ransomware detection engines built into these EDR systems. Let's talk about web content filtering. So whenever you get a phishing email, because we all get phishing emails, let's just get that out of the way. And it says your package is ready to be picked up. Click on this link, enter in your username and password to your email, no problem, and then just go on and you'll see if your package has arrived. Username and password that's a credential harvesting website. We don't want to go there. And a web content filter will pick up those accidental links that you click on and stop you from going there. Now, granted, in a bigger company, this becomes even more important. Because if you think about it, let's say you have a retail store, like a restaurant, and you have some point-of-sale computers there, and they click on a link that accidentally brings in a piece of malicious software, which then starts siphoning off credit card numbers, as we saw recently in the news, right? Some of those markets had credit card numbers that were being siphoned off by these computers that were point-of-sale systems. These were Windows computers. So those kind of accidental clicks and links can get blocked by a web content filter. Now, unfortunately, Daryl did not have this, as could be evidenced by he would sometimes, in his spare time, go on these websites to go shop for knives because he was a knife collector. He says, this is probably not appropriate to be doing in my workplace, but there's nothing stopping me. And so similarly, his employees would also pick up those kind of bad behaviors. Again, true stories. One last little point on this, PCI requirements. Daryl also does do credit card transactions quite a bit, and he's required every year to fill out this questionnaire. On that questionnaire it says, hey, do you do these A, B, C, D, E, and E type of protections? One of them was web content filtering for accidental clicks. He said, yeah, sure, I do that. But he really was not, and that could have been one of the reasons that he accidentally clicked on a link and it infected his computer network. Now for our suspect number 2, behavioral failure. In case you're wondering, this is an AI-generated image, so if it's got some weird words in there, then that's what's going on. But it does illustrate exactly how relaxed we can be about security sometimes. But, let's just be honest. We're all busy, right? Our desks sometimes look like this. It's kind of piled with paper and pens and coffee cups and all this stuff. But those bad unintentional computer habits can really come back to bite you, and you'll pay for it later. Now remember I mentioned earlier about how the bad guy got into Daryl's network and took his important client data and sold it on the dark web? What is that, dark web? I think we've all kind of heard that terminology, but what is it really? I think the best way to look at it is like an iceberg. Now my son is a Titaniac, which means he really likes the Titanic. And the Titanic ran into an iceberg, but they couldn't really see it very well. And that's because most of an iceberg is underneath the water. The very top of it is the surface web. And in that same analogy, think about, your news websites, your basic, shopping websites, all that stuff's on the surface web. The deep web, this is where financial records occur. This is where you have the school networks where they have private student data. But the dark web, that's the scary bad part. That's where Daryl's data ended up. And the dark web is a mean and nasty place, but don't take my word for it. Let's see what Wikipedia says. Wikipedia says that the dark web is the invisible, hidden part of the World Wide Web commonly used for the buying and selling of recreational drugs, for totalitarian societies such as ISIS to communicate with the outside world, operating organized crime syndicates, human trafficking, corporate espionage, identity theft, illegal trade and media exchange for pedophiles and terrorists. Yikes. That's not a place where you want your data. So it would have been best if Daryl could have taken some proactive measures to prevent his data from ending up on the dark web. But enough about, bad behaviors. Is there anyone else in the community that maybe could have some bad behaviors out there? Who here remembers the missile crisis? Or should I say, who here could never forget the missile crisis? That Saturday morning was really interesting for some folks. But as you know, it was a false alarm, and the news subsequently went to the whatever center that was where they pressed the button, and they interviewed the guy who pressed the button. But what happened is that the news cameras accidentally picked up on these interesting little things on the computer monitors. Passwords written on Post-it pads on the screens. Oh my. Bad behavior. Now, if there's room for improvement here, there's room for improvement for all of us. So let's talk a little bit about passwords, right? Now, there's always this thing that pops up if you've ever used a web browser that says, hey, do you want to save the password for this website? Chrome can do it, Safari, Firefox, right? They'll try to save your passwords. But unfortunately, that's the first place the bad guys go to try to suck out those passwords from an infected computer. So we don't want to put your passwords there, but you do need to have some unique passwords somewhere. So let me give you the quick rules of the road for passwords. In the perfect world, what we should all have is no passwords reused on any website. That means that you have a unique, different password on every single website. So that means that your Hulu password is not the same as your Disney Plus password, which is the same as your Netflix password. Or if you get really creative, you can't just add a 1 or a 2 or a 3 at the end of it. That core password should be different. It's a little bit hard to do though, because your human brain can't record all that information. So you don't want to have that kind of password reuse. And also if there's ever an option to have two-factor authentication, that's when you have a text message pop into your cell phone that you have to type into the website before you can get into it. Or a little app, like an authenticator app, that has this rotating series of numbers that you have to type into the website before you can get inside. That's kind of like the gold standard there. So unique passwords, two-factor authentication wherever you can. My oh my, that's a tall order. How do we stop that from happening? There's these things called password managers. And yes, they do cost money. Are they a lot of money? No. Probably less than this cup of coffee each month. So not a big deal. Anyone can do it. They even have some free tiers on some of these. The top two today is Keeper and Bitwarden. Will that change later? Probably. I've given this presentation in a similar form, and this slide has changed over the years. LastPass used to be top of my list. But then they had, 2 or 3 different security breaches over the past couple of years, and wow, they got knocked off my list pretty quickly. So things change, but today, these are your best choices for password management. Daryl did not have a password manager. He was putting them on, post-it pads. He thought he was being clever though. He put them underneath the keyboard. So people would have to lift up the keyboard to find those passwords. A little great website for you to check out to see if a password has been leaked out there is haveibeenpwned.com. And what's great is that you put in your email address there and it'll tell you which breaches this related to and where you need to go to kind of research where to change your passwords. For example, LinkedIn just had another recent breach. They had another one back in 2016. So if your linkedin.com password is the same as your email password or your online banking password, that should be a little bit of clue for you to start having some unique passwords in those different spots. Let's continue our investigation. We're going to talk about social engineering. Phishing. Oh boy. Well, we all got phishing and we talked a little bit about phishing, but I'll give you a story, a real story. Folks reached out to us and they said, something unusual is happening. We are a company and we have a roof. And our roof needed to be repaired. We hired some roofers. Those roofers came in and they charged us, I think, $35,000 to fix the roof. Then we got an email from the roofer that said, the job is done. We'd like payment, please. Here's the invoice. Be sure to wire us the money. Thinking nothing of it, they wired them the money and forgot about it. A month goes by. Roofer comes over. He says, knock, knock. You guys gonna pay me or what? I said, we already paid you. You got the email. He says, oh, that wasn't me. I don't know what you're talking about. And sure enough, he went into his inbox and there was no record of that occurring. This is called business email compromise. You can guess what happened. That money, gone. And we've seen a lot of this. This is in fact the #1 problem according to the FBI over the past 2 years. Business email compromise means they can get inside and impersonate folks and get that money siphoned out. $35,000, by the way, is the smallest amount we've seen on this. The largest we've seen is over $200,000, but on average it's around $100,000 to $150,000. FBI is very interested in these kind of stories. So if you have any, feel free to come to me and we can get our FBI contacts involved. But in short, if you see me talk on stage with the FBI, they will tell you that they've been able to make some progress on this. In fact, I'll tell you what the progress is. About a year ago, we could only get that money back within 48 hours. Now we can get it back in 72 hours. And that's not always 100%, and it can sometimes take months to get most of that money back. It's a very complex chain that they've set up to be able to get this money siphoned out of the country, and we don't want that to happen to you. So, now that we've seen how this all works, but I'll tell you this. We were giving this same presentation, the reason I remember it is because of this picture on this slide, to the Maui Chamber of Commerce. This was a couple of years ago during the pandemic, and we were talking about this kind of phishing scams and the sense of urgency that comes with it. That sense of urgency means that someone wants you to go out and run and get gift cards or wire money right away. A lady was watching our presentation on her computer screen, and then her mom runs behind her. Where are you going, Mom? Oh, let me tell you, I just got this phone call. It's from the police. They say it's like police or FBI, and they're on their way to arrest me unless I run to Long's really fast right now and get them gift cards and scratch off the numbers and read it to them. So this little slide saved that from happening from one person, just then. So that's more common than you think. We do some community service stuff where that means that folks come to us and we help guide them through some of these kind of scams. I think the smallest we've seen is $1,000 stolen. Largest we've seen is actually a romance scam that was 1.5 million stolen. So it's a big range, and they can keep milking you for all you got. So be very careful of that and look out for that sense of urgency. We're going to talk now about physical security though, because this is the fun part. I'm going to give you an idea. Who here has seen these kind of locks before on lockers? Of course, all throughout schools. Sometimes they even guard thousands of dollars of liquor inside of restaurants. Sometimes you see them guarding hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment or sensitive company files, right? And we've been sold this idea, we're going to call it a weapon of mass security deception. These locks are not as safe as you think. And to tell us about that, we're going to bring up our lovely people, our lovely new person, Brittnie, and she's going to show us what, yes, come on up, Brittnie. Brittnie is going to show us, now this is, remember I mentioned champion lockpicker? She's going to show us exactly how to get inside some of these locks and what that means to you.
For the sake of time, we can go straight to the demo if you want.
Well, it's up to you. I think we have time then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll give myself a little introduction. My name is Brittnie. My focus in cybersecurity is in physical data security. This includes research on how logical and physical locks protect your systems. If you'd like to start, here I can prove some creds for my street creds. This is me picking some common locks that you find throughout your workplace and through your homes. This first lock here is a lockbox actually attached to my front door. Commonly holds your spare keys to your front door, to your cars. I'll get through the other ones later. Now, I'd like to stress here that I pick locks for fun and for research. In the lockpicking community, we have a set of rules that we follow to set us apart from the bad guys. The first being, we won't pick locks that we don't own or don't have permission to pick. Because we're not here to break in, we're here to protect you, we're the good guys. The bad guys, on the other hand, like the ones that broke into Daryl's systems, they're going to break in by any means necessary. A lot of times they're going to find the quickest way, and a lot of times those ways are destructive. Sometimes they might use what's called a bypass method, where they won't even have to interact with the lock at all. They won't need a combination, they won't need a key. They can do something as simple as a soda can to bypass the combo entirely and open the lock. So today I'd like to teach a few of you how to deploy that bypass method. So if anyone would like to raise their hand to volunteer, Attila will pull it up. Otherwise, it's going to be Attila's choice.
We got a volunteer. We got another volunteer.
All right. The tool today we're going to be using is called a shim. So this shim is created out of your everyday soda can. It's a little strip of the can that's cut down into this little tool. I'll sit right up. All right. We're going to take the shim out of the lock here. And the first step we're going to do is face the lock with the dial.
Would you like to come up? Oh yeah.
It's real simple. You want to try it out?
Yeah, you got to try it. Yeah.
Okay, so the first step, if you want to follow along, is you're going to hold the dial facing towards your chest. And then take the little shim outward. And you're going to place it with the pick facing towards you into the body. And kind of jiggle it in as far down as possible. It's going to go on the left side. There. And so we're going to make sure these little flags are focused at the 12 o'clock position. So we're going to be all right. There. Then the next step, you're going to pinch these flags and kind of jiggle it around to the 9 o'clock position. Okay. All right. And then the last step, you should be moving this. All right.
Oh.
Good job, everyone.
All right.
So the takeaway here is that I would want you to think like a bad guy, so that you, as a good guy, can use that knowledge to make sound decisions on what is actually happening afterwards. It's very easy. Yes. Yeah. So congratulations, everyone. You're now hackers.
Yes.
Stay ethical. Good job. If we can meet people.
Well, actually, you can take that with you. That can be yours. And And also we have some instructions on how to make it yourself off of just a simple soda can. This is the soda can one. And we'll have that on the presentation slides. It's all in there. And as a thank you, we have some lock picking sets that we actually printed out by 3D printers. So you can open it up and you can see how you can lock pick and like get into actual stuff. Yeah.
Thank you. I think at the Cybersecurity ISSP seminars.
Oh yeah, it could be.
Okay, my wife is on in IT, so.
Have her come on down? Yeah. Yeah, of course. But the presentation is almost finished. We're gonna find out who actually killed Daryl's business. All right. So, for those of you who thought it could have been a technology fail or a behavioral fail, you were both right, because the one who actually did it was Daryl. Because by failing to take proper safeguards in his network, and not putting in good, training for his employees on how to identify bad things, not getting the proper software, not putting in the proper behavioral tools, he did it to himself. So make sure you think about a structured employee security awareness training program. Think about how your digital locks, like your password manager, would have been important, and better physical locks to keep his equipment and anything that could be going on in the background that he didn't want to have happen secured. So for any of you who would like a copy of this presentation, very easily, you can go to cypac.com/HHRS, or you can scan this QR code. And I promise you, this is a safe QR code. We didn't talk about QR code safety, but we also do have an upcoming book. And you can go and go to this website and sign up. We're going to give out free copies to everyone who signs up at any of these events. It's called Surviving the Cyber-Apocalypse, 12-step plan to keep your business safe from threat, crime, and disaster. So be sure to check that out. We'll be here to answer questions if you're interested. Otherwise, enjoy the show. And Brittnie and I would thank you very much for your time. Aloha.